Hey everybody, this is Games Plus James, and welcome back to our retro first-person shooter tutorial series. Now at the moment, we've got this little guy here who's able to come and get us, but he can't really do anything. He can't do any damage, he can't hurt us, he can't really do anything wrong to us at all. So, what we're going to do is make it so that our little enemy here can actually deal some damage. So for that, we're obviously going to need a health system in our game. So we're going to add this to our player controller very simply. So I'm going to go into my player controller script, and the first thing we're going to do is we're going to add in some variables up the top up here. So I'm going to create a private int for our current health, so how much health we currently have. We're going to have a public int for our maximum health, so this will be how much health we can actually we'll actually start our level with, for example, and this will be our maximum health we can get health packs to go up to. So for example, we'll probably have this by default, we'll have this be 100 like that, and for the moment that's it. That's all we're going to have here just now. Let's scroll down the bottom. Actually no, we'll add one more variable. We'll make a screen come up when we die, so when you run out of health we'll make a little display pop up to say, hey, you're dead. So dead screen, like so. Okay, so then we scroll down the bottom here, and below our update, we're going to add a new public void take damage, like so. And in this, we're going to type current health. We could do minus, but maybe we want to make our enemies deal a certain amount of damage. Every time they do damage, we want to have it deal different types. So our enemies could fire different bullets, for example, and each bullet would do a different amount of damage. So for that, in take damage here, we're going to add in int amount. So it'll be an amount that we want to of damage we want to deal. Actually, let's call it damage amount. And then we're going to say current health minus equals damage amount, like so. And then we'll check if our current health is less than or equal to 0. Then that means our health has gone down to 0, so we're obviously should be dead. So we're going to make sure our dead screen appears. Dead screen dot set active true. And what we also want to do is make sure that our player, when they die, isn't able to move around within the world. We don't really want our player to be able to move. That doesn't make a lot of sense. So we're going to go back up to the top, add one more variable, public bool has died. Actually, that should be a private bool. We don't need that to be public. And we're going to say in our update loop, if not has died, then we're able to do all our normal movement stuff. I'm going to close that wrapper there. So as long as we haven't died, all of this stuff will be doable, and we know we haven't died because has died will be false by default. But down here, when our health goes below or equal to 0, we'll set has died equals true. Okay, so we've got a function here to take damage. We should also have a function to add some health. So we'll have a health pickup, for example, and we're going to heal our player a little bit when we collect one of those. So public void add health with an int of heal amount, and this will be basically the same as what we previously had, except this time it'll be current health plus equals our heal amount. And this time we're going to check if our current health is greater than our maximum health. Then we want to make sure that our current health equals our max health. So we don't want to be able to go above our maximum, which is 100 at the moment. Okay, so we'll save that. That all seems fine. There's one final little thing we want to do here, which is when our player starts moving, straight away we want to make sure that they have their maximum health. Because obviously you don't want your player starting off with 0 health. That wouldn't really feel all that great. So we'll save. Actually, I'm going to make this public just so we can see what's happening with our current health in the inspector. This is basically just for demonstration purposes. You really wouldn't necessarily want to do this in your own game, because there's no need to have a variable public when you're not actually going to be making any changes to it. So over here we've got our current health is 0, maximum health is 100, and we have a slot for our dead screen, which we haven't set up yet, but we're going to very quickly and easily set that up. All I'm going to do is go to my UI canvas, create a UI image. I'm going to double click on this and scroll it up to the size of our little screen here. I'm going to change the color to, oh, my color appeared on my other screen, color to black. We'll add a bit of text, so a UI text to just say you died. Oh, I need to actually put that in the text box as well. You died, like so. And this is going to be very simple. We'll put in nice big red text. We'll scale it up so it's nice and big. Increase our font size. You died. Center all this stuff. Center that in the middle there. You died. We'll also add a button with a very simple reset on it. So that'll just be this text. Restart, we'll say. Again, font size nice and big. We're going to write a quick little script to handle this. So scripts, create C# script, reload scene, we'll call it. And this is going to be very simple. All it's going to be is we need to using Unity Engine dot scene management dot, well, if I could spell scene management we'd be okay. There we go. And we're going to then just create a public void reset scene, and all this is going to have is scene manager dot load scene, which is how we load any particular level in Unity. So we're going to load scene, and the scene we want to load is in the scene manager, get the active scene, which is the level we're currently in, dot name. So it'll just reload the scene we're already in. So we'll save this. I'll go back into Unity. I'll just add that script to our button. Oops. Hold on. No, can I not? Doesn't want to let me do it. Sometimes Unity is a bit finicky with that stuff. So we got a reload scene, and the other important thing to do is make sure that we add our current scene to our build settings. So I'm going to add my open scene there, just so it's able to reload. And we'll just test this out by pressing play. And if I hit restart, you see the bullet impact keeps popping up because that's there when we start our scene. So it is reloading the scene the way we want it to. So let's make this then, let's test this out first of all. So let's go to our player, and we'll go here. Actually, we'll rename our image to dead screen. Pop that in there, and then we're going to hide that by default. And just to check that that's actually working a bit more sensibly, let's play. I'm going to activate the screen, press the button, and it should reload without the screen active. Oh, well, I didn't set the button to do anything. What am I talking about? I was just talking a whole load of guff there, apparently. So the thing appearing was just because I was clicking and making our little guy fire. So let's do this again. Put the button itself in the click function. Reload scene, reset scene. There we go. Now this will actually do what we wanted to do. So if we activate the scene and restart, there we go. The scene is restarted. And we can kill our little dude. Okay, so that's working. Now that we have that stuff in place, we have the functions built for our player controller and for dealing damage, but we don't actually have any way of dealing damage. So the first thing we're going to do is create a bullet. So for this, we're going to go into our assets folder, into art, where we have under enemy we have a bullet image. So I'm going to drop this into our scene here. Let's double click on it so we can zoom in and see it a little bit better. And then I'm just going to move it over to here. And then what we're going to do is add a new empty object into our hierarchy. So create empty, and this will be the bullet properly, because we want the sprite to be slightly different. So now I'm going to move the sprite to 0, 0, 0. And then the bullet also we'll put at 0, 0, 0 just so it's centered, and then we'll move it over to here. Then we're going to add a circle collider, 2D, and we're going with 2D because we want this to interact with the player. So we want the player to, whenever this comes into contact with the player, it'll do some damage. Obviously that's very big. We want it to be about the size of the sprite itself, like this. Now it's very important that we do this, we add this circle collider on the bullet itself and not the image, because the image, we're going to obviously add the billboard script to it, which means this image here will be rotated. So we know that this will be rotated, say, forward like that, so it'll be flat. But if we do that like that for a second, and if we look back at the bullet holder, you can see the circle collider still stays the exact same. And that's what we want to happen, because if we did the holder object and rotated like that, although the circle collider is fine there, we'll get some weird things happening, which we really don't want to happen. So we're going to stick with just having the bullet there like that. And then we need to obviously give this something to do to the player. So I'm going to also make this a trigger. Then we're going to create a new script. Let's go to our scripts folder. We're going to create a C# script called enemy bullet. And before we make it move, the first thing we're going to do is make it so that this will actually damage the player. So below our update, we're going to say, we're going to add the void on trigger enter 2D function. We'll change collision here to other. And then we'll do a check if the other.tag equals player. So if it's the player we're coming into contact with, then go to the player controller .instance and tell it to take some damage. Then we need to tell it how much damage do we want it to take. Well, obviously how much we want it to give, we need a variable for that up the top. So we'll say public int damage amount, and then into the brackets we pass in that value, so damage amount. So that way it'll go over to our player controller and it'll call this little function and do some damage to his current health. So with that done, as soon as it hits the player and does this, we also want to make sure we destroy this game object, because we don't need to have that active. There's no real reason for it to be there anymore, and once it hits the player, it should be gone. Okay, so let's go back into our enemy bullet, and we're going to try this out. So on our bullet here, we're going to add that script. So enemy bullet there like that. Damage amount, let's say it'll do 5 damage. And what we're going to do is I'm going to press play, and then I'm going to move this object so it hits against the player. There we go, it pushed against the player. Oh, well, I'm getting pushed by the enemy there now, but that's okay. But if we go back to look at our player, we can see that did 5 damage to our current health, and we also see that the bullet is gone. So that's good. That's exactly what we want to happen. The next thing we need to do is make sure that that bullet is actually going towards the player. I'm going to deactivate our enemy for the moment so he doesn't start pushing us around. And if I play again, where is our bullet gone? Oh, he's in the ground. We don't really want him in the ground. That's fine. So that's just for our testing purposes. I'm going to move him to -0.5. Obviously, this will be different when we actually have this in our scene, because we're going to make it come from somewhere within the enemy. So we have our bullet there. That works perfectly fine. So let's make it so the bullet can move now. So in our enemy bullet, we're going to create a variable for how fast we want it to move. So public float bullet speed, and we'll set this to be 5. No, we'll go with 3 by default. No, we want it to move faster than the player, so we will go with 5. Okay, and we also want to make sure that these bullets will impact with walls and stuff like that and destroy themselves. So we're going to make sure that we actually use a rigid body on our bullets. So we'll use a private rigid body 2D called the RB. So we'll just set that up back in here for a second, because we want to do something specific with this. We want to add in our rigid body, but we don't want this taking up a lot of time with physics calculations and trying to move gravity and stuff like that the whole time. So what we're actually going to do is make it so that our rigid body is a kinematic rigid body, so it's not always trying to move around the world, but it will detect any interactions that it has as well. So we'll then go back into our script and we're going to make our little bullet guy here move. So first thing I'm going to do is actually we forgot to actually add the rigid body in here. Did I not make that public? I made it private, of course. I'll make it public. I know we could set it up in the script to just automatically get it as soon as it spawns in, but it's a little bit easier just to do it this way, I find. We could also make it require a rigid body 2 component, but it's okay. We're already here. We're already doing this as we go. So first thing we're going to do is, also we need one more thing. We need it to know which direction it should move. And obviously we always want our bullet to go in the direction of the player, but we only want it to go in the direction of where the player is when our enemies fire the bullet. So we're going to create a private vector tree called direction, and this is how we're going to know where the player is. Now you remember how we determined before which direction to move to face the player in our enemy controller here. We worked out the player direction here. We can do the same thing with our bullets, and in our start function we're going to say our direction will be equal to the player controller dot instance dot transform dot position minus our transform dot position, and then we want to normalize that direction dot normalize, and then direction equals direction times bullet speed. So we're always have that set to be going in the correct direction and the right speed. So then all we have to do in our update loop is just make sure that our rigid body dot velocity is equal to direction times bullet speed. And that's it. So now we can go back in and we should be able to see our bullet moving in action. So I'm going to actually move the bullet away from the player a bit so we have enough time to react to it moving. So now when I press play, oh, okay, I think that bullet was moving a little bit too fast. How fast does our player move again? Our move speed is 5. The bullet, let's try turning down the bullet's move speed. There we go. Okay, I actually think that's a good amount of move speed. So it's flying off into the distance there. We'll let that bullet keep going. That's perfectly fine. So we've got our bullet now flying towards the player. The next thing we need to do is make it so that our enemy can fire those bullets. And it's very simple. What we're going to do is go to our enemy. I'm going to turn him back to being active again. Actually, we'll make our bullet a prefab before we do anything else. So I'm going to drag our bullet into there. And then we'll delete this from the scene because we don't need it actually in the scene anymore. Then open our enemy controller script. We're going to add in a few variables up the top here. We're going to create a public bool for should shoot, because you might want to create enemies that don't shoot in particular, that just kind of wander around. We're going to, if our enemy is going to shoot, we're going to need to know how fast we should launch our shots. So public float fire rate, and we're going to set that to be 0.5 by default, so every half a second they fire a shot. Private float, we're going to create a shot counter. So this is what we're going to use to keep track of how long we're waiting between each bullet being fired. With that in mind, we then need to know, hey, what bullet are we actually going to fire? So we'll need a public game object bullet. And finally, we'll need to know where we're firing from. So public transform fire point. Okay. So then in our update loop, what we're going to do is make sure that our player is in range, first of all. So if we're within the distance of our player, so after we handle our little bit of movement, we're going to say, okay, if we are an enemy that should shoot, then make our shot counter, thinking of the wrong words altogether, shot counter minus equals time.delta time. So we want to make sure that this is counting down all the time. And then we check if our shot counter, I'm thinking of the fire rate and fire counter and combine them together. So if our shot counter is less than or equal to 0, then we want to make a new bullet. So we'll instantiate the bullet. And where do we want it to go? We want it to go to the fire point dot position, and fire point dot rotation. Although the rotation doesn't matter because the object itself will just rotate to face the player no matter what because of the billboarding. And then as soon as that is instantiated, we want to reset our counter. So our shot counter will now be equal to our fire rate. And that's basically all we have to do. It's very simple and straightforward. It's an easy way to have our enemies fire at us. So I'm going to let this go. We'll play again. I'm going to move our enemy far away so he doesn't shoot until we get close to them. So on our enemy then, we need to know where he's going to shoot from. And for this, we're going to make this a child of the actual skull object so that we can position it here, and then when it rotates, that the shot can come from wherever we put it. So I'm going to right click here, create an empty, and we'll call this the fire point. And then let's position it, say, between his eyes. He's firing these bullets from the center of his eyes. So then on our enemy, we can drag our fire point into there. Let's go to our prefabs folder and put the bullet in there. Like so. So you'll see now, when our skull rotates, the fire point, which is here, will rotate around up into the area as well. Actually, just to demonstrate that, I'll put the fire point up really high above his head like that. So he's shooting it out of his imaginary third eye. What an evil demon shooting bullets out of his invisible eye. Okay, let's play this and let's see what happens. If I press play. So he's too far away at the moment. Let's get him a bit closer. He's coming at me. But he's not firing his bullet. Why isn't he firing his bullet? What's going on here? Make sure there's nothing happening in the console. Let's see here. If I go to debug, let's make sure there's nothing weird happening. His shot counter is not counting down. Oh, of course. What am I talking about? We didn't say should shoot is true. So he's not going to be able to shoot at all. So let's try this again. This time we'll go close. There we go. He's firing his shots. As you can see, they're coming out of the fire point up high on his head that we placed. So we don't really want it to be up there. But now we can shoot this guy and he can shoot his bullets. And you can see they fly over us. So you can see there that they flew over us. They did miss. Some of them missed us, but some of them kept going. You can see now our current health is 60. So obviously we don't want them being that high up in the air because it looks like they're flying over our head. So that's why we want to make sure that on our enemy we have our fire point. And we're going to put it round about here. Round about the center of this guy. Makes a bit more sense. So if I press play now, go over to him. Oh, his shots are coming right at me. So I want to make sure, take this guy out. And his shots stop going. Okay, so perfect. We've now got an enemy who's firing at us and he's dealing damage just the way we want him to. And we're able to fight back and take him down and really get a sense of what should actually be happening in this kind of game. So yeah, we're going to continue on in the next episode and start looking at some of the display things we want to have going on. We want to make sure we can see our health and our ammo levels as we go through our game. We want to make sure we're tidied up a few kind of visual things that we have happening here. And then after that, we'll move on to creating some actual levels using Unity's tile map system to create 3D maps for us to use. So thanks for watching, and I'll be back with more tutorial goodness very soon.